Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl. I'm the head of marketing for Moolya. And welcome to QA on the Rocks by Moolya. Just a few house rules before we start. First thing is if you can please keep your phones on silent. Restrooms, if you have to use, that will be behind me onto your left. And the fireside chat, the whole session will go on for about 45 minutes to an hour. Post that, there will be Q&A sessions as well, where people could be asking questions. The request is, please don't stand, be seated and ask your questions. One question per attendee, no follow-up question. And while you're asking, also please mention your name and the company that you're working for. QA on the Rocks, for those who are new here, I see some fresh faces. I'll just iterate what this is. It's not a conference, it's not a webinar, it's more of an informal session where conversation happen in a room which is kind of small like this. And it's for a forum for leaders and practitioners where they come together for conversations which are usually a little pressing. Previous conversations have been around QA, will AI take your jobs, the prevalence of AI in quality and product. So without further ado, before I introduce the panelists, I'll also talk about what today's topic is. The topic for today is called green dashboards, red customer journeys.
You can't turn it upside down.
It's not very core QA this time. I'll just go a little bit in brief. It is, the conversation will be still somewhere stirred around QA, not very AI-centric either. However, there'll be AI puzzles dropped in the conversation. Basically, because the problem we are discussing today is not a testing problem, it will be a product problem, which is why we have leaders from the product space here. It's going to be an engineering problem, a customer experience problem, and most teams today have dashboards. There are lots of them. There are product dashboards, engineering, release, support, automation, all these dashboards, and all of them look green. Releases are looking good. Systems seem stable, but still a user gets stuck, a payment can fail, a support ticket comes in, even a drop-off goes unnoticed. The question isn't, did the release pass? Instead, did the customer actually succeed? And that's the question that we're going to be unpacking today. So without further ado again, introductions for the panelist. I'll start with Mr. Love Luthra, the man in the middle. Love is the SVP and head of product at Credit Saison. He has a great experience across credit, fintech, lending, and product at scale. His past experiences have been at the Saison Capital, Zest Money, Credit Enable, and Experian. Very much fintech core person, which is why it makes it important for this conversation, is that fintech products don't have the luxury for vague customer journeys. Basically, a small friction or a confusing flow can really affect your conversion. So please welcome Mr. Love Luthra among us. Next we have is Mr. Krishna. Mr. Krishna Mohangari. He is the ex-head of Porter, product at Porter. Krishna has 15 years of experience building and scaling products. He has also been part of leadership roles at Vedantu, Snappy, and Housejoy. Krishna brings very relevant lens to today's topic, which involves users, supply, operations, timing, etc. So yes, this is the kind of gap we'll be looking to explore today with the topic. So please welcome Mr. Krishna Mohangari as well. And the third member for today's panelist is Mr. Logan. Logan is the growth product manager at Zepto. It's not a very unfamiliar name for any of us here. He carries 10 years of experience building both B2B and B2C. He comes with previous experience with Walmart, Flipkart, Vodafone Idea. And of course, Zepto is a good context with the increasing QCOM economy. So yeah, there is no hiding for a dashboard when the customer expects speed, accuracy, especially in quick commerce. Even small frictions show up. So with that, we have Mr. Lograjan. Round of applause for him as well. Okay, so I think the introductions are done, and well, the man who needs no introduction is Mr. Manoj. He is the VP for Tech and the primary evangelist for Moolya. He's been the chief host for all our QATR events, successfully running onto the 9th episode. And thank you again, Manoj, for doing a wonderful job that you do, and we hope for another one. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I reiterate what Cheryl has said. Thank you all for turning up with challenging weather around. I know we had a lot of registrations and confirmations. I believe there would be more people adding, but nonetheless, we are still happy with it. Okay, coming back. So we were speaking some time back. Let me reiterate it to the public here and stuff and all. A lot of our events previously had too much of AI. Now, I'm not letting it go. I'll bring it back. I'll bring AI to it. But this time, we wanted to focus on something. The topic says green dashboard, red customer journey. It's a, if I have to quote, a sexy way of saying what it is and stuff and all. So companies can have dashboard, or it's a figuratively saying that whatever was supposed to be productized, developed, tested, and rolled out has happened. Functionally, everything is working. But the acceptance, the usage, the reputation, or the tickets that raised at the customer end is not what was expected. So where does this whole problem fall into? I mean, it's where the customer success and the product teams, again, verbal jugglery, the product teams. So you three are representing, let's say, the SaaS way of finance part of it, the BFSI here, the quick commerce, of course, Zepto, and you've been part of the logistics, the quick commerce, everything as a part of Porter and stuff and all. Here, the customers are the king. They like it, they click it. They don't like it, they don't click it, kind of a thing. So how do we bridge this? What are they expecting? What are we delivering? Okay. Have we done something wrong? How do we roll back? Or are we going on the right path? Do we need to take more time or give more time to the customer so that this will become a success? So more than theory, we would love to hear how has it been in your journeys, what did you learn, incidents and stuff and all, for us to take that back, saying that these are some things that we have learned. So that's the whole theme of this talk. I have some questions. The questions are primarily the anchor points for us to discuss specifics, but the background is what we discussed. Again, as a culture, we don't go one after the other. I'm going to pick randomly. Generally, there are 4 or 5. The first time we have 3. The idea was to take it slower. The idea was to give more time for every speaker, because when we had 5 speakers, it was like I always get a timeout from the other side, and I'm like, I am under pressure to cut wherever that needs to be. So this time, I believe we have time, and we will wholeheartedly hear each one of you out. Okay, the theme 1, I put this as themes. The theme 1, the beginning is illusion of green. Again, it's figurative here. You may have a dashboard, or it's where the releases are all fine stuff and all. We want to know more about your exposures and what has happened where everything looked healthy internally, but customers struggled. It can be something that you've seen, or it can be something that you caught much before, or what were the signals and stuff and all. I'd also love to say something that our own product team, Bagasura team, is also here. Most of the people are here. Thank you for being part of that. So it's a lot of information for them also, because they are hardcore into technology, depends and stuff, and all. This is a lot of learning for them. So let's begin with you, Krishna. The question is, tell something about your experiences where everything looked healthy, fantastic, but the customers struggled. Struggled meaning it didn't work the way it is.
Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah. So I think maybe I'll kind of start with a little bit of like a philosophical approach as to why some of this happens, and then maybe I can relate to a couple of examples, right?
Please.
So to make it more practical. So I think like in my understanding, a couple of reasons why this ends up happening is one is I don't really think like we understand customer expectations like as well as we think we do, and like the way we design in a perfect world versus how customers actually end up using that feature or that product, there's like a lot of difference between like a simulated reality versus what actually happens on the ground, right? So I think, yeah, that's kind of one big learning or lesson, for us. The second is we don't always get the metric understanding as right as we would like. So
Wow,
yeah, so that's why
metric.
Yeah. A lot of times, the metrics that we measure are proxies for what customers actually, end up doing or what we think they end up doing. But like sometimes the proxies kind of start deviating so much from the actual reality that you start seeing a big divergence in expectation versus reality, right? And that's kind of where this happens, right? Where like the dashboards look green, the metrics are telling a different story, but in reality, there's something else happening, right? So these are, from a philosophical lens, I think these are a couple of observations that kind of have resonated, right?
Resonates.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Yeah, it resonates.
Yeah.
Come.
So that I think has been kind of what we've seen. I think that's why one of the reasons we've also incorporated a culture in a couple of my previous companies, even the last one, Porter, we kind of used to mandate that every employee has to be close to the customer in some form or the other. I mean, so like there is obviously this passive way we kind of understand customers' frustration through tickets, when we kind of look at Play Store reviews and so on and so forth, right? There's obviously various data points that we kind of get, but a lot of times I think that doesn't necessarily tell you why something is happening. And that's kind of one of the, like what I kind of talk about, qual versus quant, right? Like quantitative metrics kind of give you a really good understanding of what is the problem, not necessarily why that problem, exists in the first place, which is where a lot of qualitative depth is useful, especially in the consumer world, which I represent. It could be different for enterprise companies and stuff. I'm obviously not worked in enterprise SaaS before, so I'm not the best person to talk about that. But consumer world, there's so many different cohorts, so many different users, different contexts that they operate in. So we try to be close to them, and we end up doing like at least once a month or so. We end up being kind of doing like dry runs. Like we do a lot of, like we accompany, for example, our partners. We go to the customers' locations. We kind of do orders and see how like this actually happens, right? So we kind of are on the field, right? Because most of our customers, I used to work at Swiggy some time back. And Swiggy is like a very natural product that all of us also use in our day-to-day life. So the need for actually doing as much dog fooding or doing these dry runs was not as high because like you are a customer daily, day in, day out. And
I was about to ask, have you delivered food as a part of that dry run?
I have.
You have? Oh, nice.
I have. But I think that was more of like getting to know the systems and like getting to know the day in the life of a driver and so on and so forth. But otherwise, to customer problems, I was on the customer side, so I think customer problems you can very easily relate to because you yourself are a customer, right? And like everyone around you is a customer, so you kind of get a lot of feedback. But the last two companies that I worked for, I was in edtech for a while, where obviously I'm like building products for very young impressionable minds in the K-12 space, right? Like people who are in their schools and stuff like that. So you are not the customer, you are very distant from that customer, right? Even at Porter, majority of our customers are small and medium businesses. So what SMBs go through like in their day-to-day life is not something that is intuitively relatable to you if you're not from that background, right? So hence it's sometimes you get distanced from what the customer is actually going through. So ensuring that we kind of go to the field, we see how customers actually use our product. We tag along with our delivery partners. We do deliveries on their, like along with them or on their behalf. I think these keep us very grounded, and this helps us really pick these signals, right? Like the green dashboards and red journeys. That kind of a lot of that resonates because we've seen so many of these nuances, edge cases, right? Not kind of getting captured well, which is kind of what I meant. Metrics don't always kind of like tell you the right story because a lot of these nuances and depths and edge cases kind of get missed out, which we uncover from these. So yeah, that's kind of become a ritual over a period of time now. Everyone does that. We all go, we start compiling our feedback. All of that feedback, thanks to AI, now we kind of push it into like a synthesizer model, which kind of gives us like, here are the top issues, and we kind of figure out a way to ensure that becomes a part of our backlog. So we kind of keep knocking away some of those issues or bugs. I mean, some of them have also helped us really understand deep systemic problems. Sometimes some of them like seem like small bugs, but you start realizing that there's a pattern to it. And unless you kind of go and like fix the core, and sometimes it's like a big architectural revamp and things like that. So some of those discoveries have also come our way because of these customer visits.
Okay, lovely. I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to come back to you because I'll want everybody to get an opportunity. Let's go with you. You want me to reiterate the question?
No. I think I have.
There you go.
Is it audible?
Yeah, you are.
Great. So maybe I'm to Krishna's point, right? I'm a little bit more on the slightly back-endish side of the consumer experience, but it is very, very well lived for us as well. So I'll just give a quick context about who I am. Because like everyone knows Porter and Swiggy, everyone definitely knows Zepto, but probably not a lot of people know about credit Saison. So we are an NBFC. So what we do is we power loans, right? So primarily personal loans, because most of the audience is an individual. So you'll understand this. So if you have ever been to Cred and used Cred money, or if you have ever seen InstaCash on Ind money, that's all powered by us, right? So as a lender, right, like a customer experience in the journey, you can probably think, how does it even matter to us, right? At the end of the day, whether the borrower will take the money or they will probably not, right? It's actually very important, right? Because we want always the right set of borrowers to borrow money from us, right? Because ultimately lending is a collections game. It's very easy to give out money, very hard to take money back. If people experience friction in the journey, if they experience paper cuts, bugs, or they drop off because of lack of interest, or you made it too hard for them, you usually lose out on the good customers, right? And people who will stick to the journey even if it is bad are probably the bad customers who are not going to pay you back. So it is very, very important for a product manager in the lending space to also ensure that their journey is crafted in a manner that makes it easy for the users to onboard, right? So we obsess. It might not probably sound that important for us, but we really obsess about drop-offs, right? Because each and every stage of drop-off could mean the difference between a sustainable lending book that we are building versus a book that is probably going to get bust very, very quickly, right? So I'll give you a very simple example of this, right? if you have ever taken a loan, very, very likely you would have registered a mandate on your account, right? Something called a NACH mandate. So what the NACH mandate is, for those those of you who haven't done it before, it's a instrument which debits money from your bank account. Right, on a fixed periodicity. So a NACH mandate, there are various ways of registering it. I'll just probably stick to one or two, right? Which is that you can use a debit card to authenticate the transaction, or you can use your net banking password to authenticate the transaction. Now, like many things to do with payments in India, NACH has been developed by NPCI, the National Payments Corporation, right? So the entire stack sits with the rails of NACH, so to speak, sit with NPCI. And NPCI, why they have done a phenomenal job with UPI Autopay, I would, at the risk of maybe if there are any NPCI folks here, they've done a very, very terrible job of NACH, right? So the kind of user experience issues that you get in NACH are unmatched. There are just no standards, right? So we have seen users experiencing issues because, they couldn't register a mandate because, they did not have a minimum balance, which nobody knows what the minimum balance should be in your account, and they just couldn't register it. We have seen, issues where, what happens is when you attempt a transaction, attempt a NACH registration, it registers a unique transaction reference at NPCI. Right, and it fails. It fails because NPCI just wasn't having a good day. It fails because your bank wasn't having a good day. It would fail because of multiple reasons, right? Now you as a lender and as the user, you would want to reattempt the transaction. Now, if you reattempt it while the transaction was not fully seen through to its terminal end, NPCI will throw a fit and it will just reject the transaction, right? So these are not things that, are written down in any specifications, right? Like the NPCI specification looks very clean, but these are lived experiences. So when you actually start doing it, actually start doing the journey, actually start calling the users to understand what happened, that is when you come across this. And that is where, as a product manager, an engineer, or a QA person, you can probably, assimilate a little bit more of what the user experience actually looks like on the ground, which is the topic for the day, and improve the user experience over a period of time. But because whether it is consumer experiences or lending experiences, or drop off actually costs business, right? So yeah, that will probably be the opening.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that is something. Now that both of them have said that, I'll add a small tweak to the question for you. A lot of their experiences, as I understand, as I get it, is that they're trying to measure how the things are going to flow, more of corrective actions. Of course, you can mention what you have been through. We would love to hear that. But isn't there a preventive action here? Only corrective, is it?
Yeah, I mean, like a couple of things, right? Following up on the first question. Most of the times, we wish all the metrics turn green, like anything we do. But it's not very, not even
dreamy.
1% that we get everything green. To give an example, let's say 5 months back, we decided that we will give free delivery at 99 for all the users and waived off a lot of fees. So of course, we know the order is going to increase, but we also signed up that now the average value of orders could go down potentially, because earlier we were asking giving a free delivery at 199. Now we give it at 99. So in certain consumer examples, right, you don't really can aim for having a green dashboard. So you aim that, okay, I will have a green in certain metrics which I chase, and I am okay to have an acceptable level of red in key metrics. Now, the second part to it, right, like how do I prevent that, okay, it should not go below. Let's say if I'm okay to get 1% extra orders, but my profit should not go below 0.5%. Now we have to prevent that. Then how do you plan for it? Then you say, okay, maybe I'll give free delivery, but I also give some extra coupons. So that would motivate people to go for a higher order. And in connection to this, right? Now, when we sign up for this, we also do like, because it's consumer experience, right? We have the luxury that every feature that we build, we can ship faster, experiment it also. And with that comes a bigger challenge. Now, let's say I ship a feature which aims to increase average order value of users, right? Now, the complexity of geography, business teams, even multiple pods working across, sometimes you see that your experiment is doing unbelievably good. So you see that, okay, I expected maybe 4 rupees, 5 rupees increase in the average order value. Suddenly I'm seeing 10 rupees higher value. And then you're happy, 3 days it goes well, and then you go and try to scale it up, and then you get asked, okay, show me whether your feature is actually connecting to this goodness. And there are cases which has happened in the experiment. Luckily, few users who were part of the test variant, right, have bought a lot of gold coins. And gold coins are 15,000 rupees. An average order in Zepto is like 400, 500 rupees. You add atta, oil and all. Somebody, like 10 users placing 10 gold coins, 15,000 rupees an order. Suddenly your experiment looks all green. You're very happy. You want to scale up. But that's where we have a very strong analytics team, product analytics team, who challenges you back. So we actually have a very rewarding mechanism for analysts who question and don't let us scale the experiment. So usually, I as a product manager, I as a PM would be happy, right? Like if I scale 10 features, show goodness, but our analytics usually push back, and we have to tie it back to the way how we measure whether a green is actually a green is. If I made a change, let's say in the search experience, when a user searches something and something pops up, there I'm recommending to upgrade to a bigger value product. We actually check that whether from that widget, if the users have done more ATCs, whether it correlates or not. And we also go deeper. Okay, is there any other part of funnel, which category, which subcategory, is it all linking together? Then only we do that. And so that was the second part of it. First part of it is we don't really sign up for all green and don't have the luxury to do that. Second is this complexity of multiple categories and multiple funnels. The third part was the seasonality, right? Certain things we don't even get to know unless that particular season comes up. For example, when I say seasonality, right, not like a big, larger season, in a month also we have couple of days there will be electronic sale, couple of days there will be furniture sale. In the beginning of the month when we ran the experiment, it was all positive. And we scaled it up, and later we realized suddenly there was an issue because in electronics people offer EMI, and the feature we actually rolled out had an exactly contradicting issue with EMI. People cannot offer EMI. We got to know very later. So that's where the third part, what we used to do is, we still do, is to have a long-term holder. So any feature, we keep it at 98%, and then we still have 2% of users who does not get to see the feature. So we still can keep measuring whether the particular feature or any product that we rolled out, is it really a success or not.
Wow. I mean, that's too many teams working on too many data to analyze with respect to what it is. So the success need not be just because couple of your testers ordering gold coins doesn't classify that to be successful. Oh, nice. Okay. Now, when is it that, or I'll continue with you because we were just on the point and stuff and all. How do you classify if a failure has been or if a feature has been a complete failure? Or how do you classify it? It can be masked. For example, with respect to the quick commerce, the Christmas, New Year time can be a lot of orders. People can go ahead and do things and stuff and all. It goes into a seasonal perspective. It goes into area. It goes into the type of people. It goes into the value or even the vertical that you're trying to sell. Like nobody will buy electronics every week kind of a thing. Yeah, of course. In the beginning of summer, probably fans, something like that, umbrellas, or it again becomes seasonal and stuff and all. So how do you, because we were talking about experimentations and stuff and all, how do you define, wow, this is a success? Or is there anything that you have been part of where you clearly decided, no, this is absolute failure?
Yeah, I mean, 70% of items I work don't even get shipped.
Oh man, so there's like so many.
Yeah.
Okay.
So an interesting thing is in Zepto, almost every team member feels, I don't know how we are able to do that, but the culture is everybody keeps talking about customer. I know it's a cliche, but people keep saying customer is king. So even when we start working, right, if I go and discuss with my product head or with analytics to sign off saying, okay, this is a feature that we should work on, before we even put a pen and paper and start writing PRD, during that stage itself, we debate it out, whether it should even do it or not. Because anything, if you see in isolation, will look like, yeah, this is really good. See, an example is, let's say, so many people order milk from Zepto. Now, why shouldn't we launch subscription? I will deliver 2 packets of milk to you every day, right?
It's actually a good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You know that we have been debating about it for 2.5 years. Because, let's say if I launch the feature, right? Somebody who comes to app, orders to milk, but also finds, okay, let me order one bread and butter. How would I sell them that product? I would not get their session, right? So this debate we keep doing. That's step 1 of filtering. Second is the designers again. If I ask and go and show that, hey, see, this feature we can do, I show some references, they call it out saying, no, I don't think users are not doing this because of this. So at every stages, right? And after that, when we show it to engineers for sprint planning, and even once we get it prioritized, do a walkthrough with the entire developers, QAs call it out. No, last time I worked on a similar feature 3 months back for a different team. It didn't work out. I don't think this will work out. So before even we start that first line of code, there is a lot of filtration that happens from each and every team member who feel very passionate about. And the good thing is everybody understands how users also shop, right? Because each one of us also a customer, and we have a lot of friends, family members who face similar issues. So that filtration is something which helps us to prevent a lot, and that helps us to identify these failures. That's the question, right? So that helps us to identify failures faster.
Wow. Okay. I have a lot of questions, but let me get back to you. Let's move to you, Love. Again, you can simulate yourself as a Zepto customer, whether I want to get into a subscription for milk or newspaper, or I want to just place a ad hoc order of bread and stuff and all, can be thought through, argued and stuff and all. It may not be that level where it comes to a loan and what goes into a mind of a person who's trying to get a loan. Are easy directly coming on to your portal, or you're integrated into somebody else's journeys with all their compliances, nooks and other clicks and stuff and all. How do you define this is successful, or no, I'll wait until this becomes successful? This is a failure. No, this is not yet a failure. I'll wait until this becomes, or this data becomes to this for me to term as a failure. It's a very high level question.
Yeah.
You can go to your depth and explain if you have seen this.
Yes. No, we have been in the industry long enough to have seen my fair share of more failures than successes, by the way, right? It's usually what happens. Like, a few successes are the ones which sort of drive the companies, but usually it's a story of failures, right? So we also have it. And so while we are mostly like a, back-end provider, right? So essentially we also have direct to customer products. We've launched a few have been successful, few haven't been successful. So I'll maybe share an example of a failure, right? And it again goes into the core of what lending actually means, right? So as I said, so a lot of our customers come from Cred, a lot of our customers come from IndMoney. That business is doing really, really well, healthy business, because the people are already kind of engaged. So there's this one famous saying, or rather famous quote, famous tweet from Kunal Shah, right? That lending is a feature, right? A lot of companies are actually built around that, right? Like they try to get folks in for daily engagement activities or maybe periodic engagement activities. So Cred brings people in for bill payments, credit card payments, IndMoney, they bring people in for investments, US stocks or Indian stocks, right? And then lending becomes, another value added service that you can have on the app, right? So that essentially selects a good cohort of customers, right? So we thought that we could also, figure out a way to select a good cohort of customers while making lending the hero product. It was an experiment. We wanted to try it out because a bunch of people really do that well, right? So we launched an app and we basically said that, okay, you can come on board onto the app as a customer and take a loan from us. It will be a simple loan. You can, we'll probably offer you a limit. You can withdraw whatever you want. You can pay and then, withdraw again later if you've, achieved the qualifications from our side. In theory, great product, right? But now we ran into a couple of challenges, right? The first challenge was, when you would have heard about these two gentlemen, you would have really recognized their companies, right? Porter and Zepto. Credit Saison, nobody recognizes. We've been so much pushed into the back end that probably people don't really recognize us, right? So when we went out into the market saying that, okay, hey, we do offer loans as well directly, come and take the loan from us at really attractive interest rates. And we got the worst segment of customers applying. Right. So, so these segments of customers are usually like, okay, if you are a lower risk segment, you end up getting a lower interest rate. If you are a higher risk customer, you end up getting a higher interest rate. So usually, everyone knows about the normal distribution. Usually these are normally distributed, right? And most of our lending journeys also, we see a fairly normalish distribution of risk curves, and that is how businesses are made in lending as well. When we, started doing this ourselves, like it shifted completely to the right? Higher risk people coming and taking loans at higher risk, higher interest rates. And therefore, the portfolio started getting really, really bad. Right. And how you identify it is, in lending, you identify these events as people bouncing their EMI payments, right? So by that time, it's already too late, right? So ever since then, we have also, so obviously that was a failure and we shut it down. And there have been similar businesses which we have shut down, not because of similar reasons, but different learnings. Probably, our segment was not priced right, or our distribution strategy with certain players was not really the right one, or we didn't find the right product market fit. Ultimately you're giving money, but there are a lot of nuances to the kind of products that you make in lending as well, which make it successful or a failure, right? So ever since then, we have also identified ways in which we can predict some of this upfront, that, okay, hey, if we get this kind of selection of customers, if we market it this way, it is probably going to fail. And therefore we have continuously since then tried to evolve our strategy. Ultimately it's a loan, but how exactly you capture the value prop of the customer really matters. So a very simple thing that we have started doing, in hindsight it looks very simple always, is that before we launch any of these products, right, so we actually go and speak to the cohort of customers, like our ICP, essentially, like our target audience, really, really deeply, right? So we've very recently launched affordable housing as a segment, like where people, where average ticket sizes of loans are around 15 lakh rupees and people pledge their properties. And so we have gotten really into the depth of what exactly does it mean to be a borrower in that segment. And again, maybe I'm going a little bit longer, but I'll just relate another example. So these are segments where we see a lot of dairy income people. So people who have cattle, right? Literally, like they will have a herd of 8-10 cattle and people will, be deriving some income out of it. Probably they have a son who is earning and they want to maybe, expand their dairy business, or they maybe want to take some kind of a working capital loan, they want to take a loan to pay off some education loan or whatever, right? So they'll pledge their property and they'll take that loan, right? So underwriting that loan versus underwriting a personal loan is a very, very different proposition, right? So you have to really go there, understand how they're earning their income. And I've been to a bunch of these visits, right? These are like very, very remote, sometimes tier 2, tier 3 cities is where you get these kind of populations. So the underwriting is also very, very region specific, right? So you'll have credit underwriters who go to these people, they ask, what is your source of income? And they'll say, hey, I have cows. And how do they validate them? They sort of see if they have a cooperative certificate where they're selling the milk from the cows, right? And, again, anecdotally, and I've seen this happen, so the credit underwriter, when he approached the person and just to ascertain whether he's not bluffing that he actually has cows or owns the cows, he actually asked the, ultimate borrower to go and feed the cows as well in front of him. Like, I want to see you feed the cows so that I know it is you who owns these cows, right? So it is that level. So on one side, you have a completely digital journey, which ends in 5 minutes. And on the other segment, you have this. So yeah, like understanding your customer segment and then preparing your journey around it. I mean, that can potentially prevent failures, right?
Wow, okay. A product guy in this has to literally go and ask a guy to feed the cow to understand that the cow genuinely belongs to him. Okay. Krishna.
Yeah, maybe I can kind of give an example from marketplaces, which I've kind of
Please.
worked on, have a lot of experience. So I think marketplaces become very tricky because like if you look at like Porter, Uber, any of these companies, right? So it's like a two-sided network, right? So there is customers and then there are drivers, right? So fundamentally, when we look at success, right, like we kind of look at certain, like we go to the like core philosophy of like it has to make economical sense for the whole marketplace, right? Like, the term which we call is liquidity, which is kind of a very common thing in marketplaces, but let me not kind of get into the technicals here. But essentially, the idea is that it has to really work for all the parties. It has to work for the customers. It has to work for the partners. It has to work for us as a company. And it has to make economic sense for everyone, right? So that's the core philosophy. Now, how do we capture that core philosophy in metrics? And like, is that telling the success story or a failure story is kind of what we essentially look at. So for example, if you lower the prices, right, that'll like be an instant hit with the customers, right? Everyone wants lower prices. But if you start doing that, you will see conversion rate going up, which is obviously a great metric to obsess about from a customer perspective. But at that price, it won't make economical sense for the driver, right? So you will see a lot of drivers either not accepting your ride, which kind of happens in Uber also quite a bit. You would have observed, personally. So they will not accept it, or they will accept it, come to the location, and because we don't necessarily deal with standardized goods, so there is also room for negotiation, right? So the driver can come and say that, okay, but like you said 5 kgs, you're giving me 10 kgs, hence you need to pay me extra, right? So, and at that point, if the customer says, no, I'm not going to pay you extra, then the driver could cancel, right? Or sometimes the driver could also accept the order, even if it is a lower priced order, but be on the lookout for more orders, right? And it's not like they work exclusively with us only. We kind of work with a freelance marketplace, right? So a lot of these drivers also are operating on other apps. So they're operating on Rapido and like a bunch of other apps, right? So if they get a better order from somewhere else, they will cancel this order and pick that up, right? And you would have already seen that with Ola, Uber drivers, 2 phones, right? All of that happens, right? So yeah. like that's why it's very important to balance the marketplace or the network effects, right? So you can't like only optimize for one side of the equation. So a lot of times, like increase in conversion rate doesn't necessarily translate to an increase in what we call as fulfillment. Fulfillment is basically conversion is order placed. Fulfillment is actually someone came and picked up your order, right? Delivered or completed, right? And then it also has to translate into the metrics that are important for the driver, like which is their earnings, their utilization, right, their satisfaction, right? So now all of this metrics getting ticked is a really hard problem. And the other part, which kind of like, I mean, obviously, what makes it really difficult in a marketplace is basically these network effects, right? Like at times you don't realize. Like maybe a few transactions might not tell you the entire story. You will have to wait for like maybe multiple transactions over months so that habit gets built, right? Because once you kind of get into that habit, you'll start seeing that there is a lot more stickiness, there's a lot more loyalty, right? And hence to buy stickiness, a lot of companies, us included, I'm sure, the likes of Zepto, Swiggy, all of us have done that. We discount, right? Like we heavily discount because we kind of are trying to buy that, repeat behavior from the users. And those are the parts which are very hard to detect whether that discounting, is it actually, buying you that loyalty or not, right? And unfortunately, that you only get to know at a certain scale after a certain like repeat, transactional value. So that's why marketplaces become very, very hard, right, from a network effects perspective, which is why I said it has to work for us also. So we have to make money as a company, not by discounting, but actually genuinely creating stickiness. Customers have to be happy. Partners have to be happy, like the whole flywheel has to work, right? So those are essentially the hard metrics. So we have obviously our own playbook that we say, and we say that if these are the, let's say, X number of metrics, if all of them are trending in the right direction, then we know that we are onto something. Like he said, most of them don't, right? So a lot of experiments, a lot of ideas get killed. The ones which stick, but yeah, I think Love also said that I think the ones that stick, they actually create like a 10x multiple, right? And because of that, if your growth rate is actually X, then suddenly you kind of see like a 2x, 5x, 10x kind of like a lift. But finding that right, feature or right product opportunity is like, you try 10 things, maybe 2 will work, 8 will fail. Yeah, so that's I think the hard part. Yeah.
Okay, so we are done with the first theme. I mean, I have now realized that each of us are taking a lot of time to answer. So I'm going to now make it a bit more quicker so that we cover the next themes also. The next theme is customer journeys. Okay. I respect you people being in the product, which is a very, if 70% of the ideas don't go out and there are metrics, you don't even know which side it's going to swing and stuff and all. Yeah, it's a very complicated place to be. We in Moolya, we come from software testing background. We have expanded to engineering and everything also, but we also believe in something what we call as context driven testing. It's one of the core ethos that we run on, and we believe a tester or a test engineer should always think like the product team, because at least the engineering guys, the developers have the flexibility because we are the boundary people for them. What have you thought and put it in the paper is something that we have to test. So coming back to the customer journeys, because this theme will have some kind of an effect on the quality part of it. That's the thing that we have to say. I actually have one question which we would love to discuss more on, saying that from a product and a customer journey, how do you clearly differentiate customer behavior and product assumptions? Okay, a product guy will assume, and a customer behavior. Now, again, we may have answered these. It can be very corrective, or you can do some amount of A/B testing. You can have a closed group giving feedback. Some QA in some team can come and say that 3 months back something we did and stuff and all one. And I want to add a flavor to it. How do we incorporate the user emotions part too? So let's begin with you again, Krishna. Customer behavior, product assumptions, and emotions.
So I think like generally, whenever as a product team, whenever we're thinking about what we are like, if there's a feature or there's like a problem that we are like attacking, right? So you always start with the why, right? Like why did this problem like originate in the first place, right? Why are we trying to solve it, right? So, and you kind of keep going deeper and deeper into it, right? That's kind of when you start realizing that this is the core problem, why this is not working, right? Now, that obviously comes from multiple places, as you rightly said. So sometimes it's because like we've experienced it ourselves because of these field visits and stuff like that. Sometimes because of tickets and feedback from users. Sometimes data is telling us, right? Like, or users are telling us. So there's various ways, right? So the trick is essentially in how do you like how are you able to capture all of that, like synthesize it and distill it down to like that core why, and that is usually the hardest part, right? Like, so that is what takes like an insane amount of time in
what you
2 years in this example, right? Like, so it takes 2.5 years to kind of like just get that why, right? So I think that's like that's the hard part. And what we've also realized is like there'll be like many examples where which is what I said at the earlier side also, that what we think versus how customers actually use the product in reality, there is usually, I mean, not always, but like sometimes we kind of see like a big disconnect, right? And when that happens, if you are able to capture enough metrics which kind of cover the entire plethora, you start figuring out that something is not working, which is like, some metrics obviously turn green, but you need like a combination of metrics to turn green, which I kind of mentioned, right? And if that is not working, then you know that there's something wrong, right? And once you know that there's something wrong, then you obviously start again going deeper. Like sometimes data will tell you the answer, sometimes it will not. So then you kind of pick up the phone, talk to customers, or go and visit, or like you do deliveries yourself, right? Then you start realizing, what is the problem that you're facing, right? So yeah.
So I mean, I keep traveling. I keep looking at apps at different countries and stuff and all. One of the things I use when I'm in US is DoorDash. When I'm in Europe is something and stuff and all. So I always wondered this. Okay, I'm just going to put it out. Zepto and Swiggy guys can think about it. So DoorDash has an option where the moment you ordered food and when your delivery guy is going to go and pick it up and come and deliver it to you, it will also prompt us the shops in between and what he can go and pick up for you in between. So that's always made me add something in between. I would have ordered some food. Okay, get me a Coke, get me some chips and stuff. And also, I used to wonder why hasn't Swiggy or Zomato or Zepto has done that. I would have ordered biryani on the way. If there is corner house, he can go and pick it up and it's on the way and stuff and all. So to the point, just mentioning the experience, that what the customer thinks, to the customer behavior, to the journey.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like it's very different and it's very contextual also. Like, for example, like in the US, I think this to your point, right? So a couple of big dynamics which are different for the US market versus India is that delivery fee is actually like a very big component, a very big part.
$4.99, $9.99 per delivery.
Yeah, it's actually a very big part of their pricing and their fee, and that's also because labor is expensive, right, in the US as opposed to India. So India, you don't see, a delivery fee to be that expensive. I mean, obviously now, you've started seeing a lot of these apps increasing the delivery fee, but for the longest time, delivery fee was actually a very small component, and even to this date, the majority of the revenue comes from restaurant commissions as opposed to delivery fee, right? So, so that's, I think, one, like, the labor market, the pricing, differences, and also like in like generally Indian consumers are not known for paying for convenience, and the US customers are generally like known to do that. So yeah, I think a lot of these, geography specific nuances, so that those kind of come in. The other thing is India is a very densely, packed market. So you kind of see a lot more utilization gains because like what we kind of call as like milk runs, right? Like you kind of do, you kind of go and do a delivery and then come back and do another. Like you keep running to and fro between this, or you kind of have different hubs from where you pick up and you're able to efficiently utilize the driver or the partner. US market is not as dense, because of which you have to engineer higher utilization into the mix, which is why you have to do all of these things, right? So, like I said, I think the market dynamics are so different, and those are the nuances that you kind of need to pay attention to.
Wow, great.
Like just to kind of like talk about this point, right? Like so, one of the things, for example, which was like a discovery for us, which we didn't know, is like the ideal versus reality, right? Like so when we designed the experience for our partners, we kind of thought that, they should kind of like take X minutes to kind of go and deliver this. Right? But they end up taking, let's say, X plus delta X. That's because they also have figured out ways of doing the same thing that you said, but in their own jugadu way, by combining orders from different apps together. Like, for example, if they're doing a porter order, on the way, if there is a Rapido order, they'll go and pick that up and go and deliver. And to that extent, they will do some deviation here and there, right? Obviously, they'll not stick to the exact route that we are recommending. We started, initially we didn't realize this, but we started kind of this becoming like a big thing. And we didn't actually know this through data. We got this from customer feedback because some customers would call us and tell us
he's going on the wrong side.
Yeah, he's going on the wrong side. He's not going on the map, right? Like, or my ETA was X and like now it's not X anymore, right? So I think that you can still get from data, but like the map deviation and all of that, we didn't, I mean, you could obviously instrument it, but at that point, we didn't think that it was important enough to instrument. So yeah, I think some of this kind of came from customers, and then we initially thought that this was actually a bug or a problem with our mapping technology. We thought our maps was not working properly, and we kind of went and ripped it apart and looked at all the problems, and then eventually after a while realized that it's not our problem, it's actually the partner behavior, right? He's doing like his own frisky business, right? So yeah, so those are like some things that you don't, like in a room when you're as a PM, when you're thinking, or as an engineer, as a QA person, when you're kind of looking at all of this, you don't really imagine that this is kind of how customers will behave, right? But they do that. So yeah.
Wow, nice. Love customer behavior, product assumptions, user emotions.
I'll maybe start with user emotion a little bit, right? Like, because sometimes I feel, and this is from a past experience, right? Like sometimes I feel like we have optimized the lending experience to such an extent that people don't even understand that they have borrowed something, right? And like, I'll probably give an example of a ed tech company. Their name starts with a B. So they had this really fantastic business of selling tablets to parents, right? Like literally preying on their emotions that, okay, वो शर्मा जी का लड़का तो इतने मार्क्स लेके आ रहा है, वो बाईजू यूज़ कर रहा है, आप भी ये यूज़ करो, आप टैबलेट ले लो. So basically they became so efficient at doing all of this that the whole business became selling that tablet, right? The content was also there. I'm not saying the content wasn't there, but the core business became like, have you sold that tablet? And the lenders became an enabler to that, right? That, okay, you can't afford the tablet, it is 90,000 rupees, you can just take it on no cost EMI, right? Just pay 30,000 rupees or just pay 15,000 rupees over 6 months.
That's why you guys were there.
Yeah, so we had done that, like in one of my past companies, right? And so, basically Byju's, as any other company, they had like a return policy that, okay, 30 days later, if you don't like it, you can return it, right? But by that time, the lender had already paid for the device, right? Like it was no longer their problem. So they were disincentivized to sort of make the return. So, and obviously the lender wants the EMI. So the lender calls up the borrower and they're like, sir, your first EMI is due and you've bounced your payment. They're like, I never took a loan. Like it was like no cost and you can cancel it. Sir, but the loan is not cancelled. And we got into such a, big mess with this entire expectation mismatch, right? And essentially the tech provider here not having the skin in the game, and so much so that the parents were not even aware that they had taken a loan, right? And once they realized that, and so much of soup they were in, some of them paid back, but a lot of them defaulted as well, because they genuinely thought that, okay, this is not really worth my time, I can't really afford it. At that point I was missold something, and but now I can't really pay. He didn't know that by not paying he's impacting his CIBIL score and future borrowing, right? So that became a nightmare for all of us, right? So essentially, the product journey was bang spot on, right? Like, we did everything possible to make the journey that seamless that the borrower didn't even know that, okay, they're taking a loan, right? So all dashboards green, but the customer experience super red, right, at the end of the day. So yeah, that's the story.
This is a lovely example.
Yeah.
I know it
Assumptions
took some
versus
time.
product, right? So this was way back in Flipkart. By now, that feature has become very normal. If you, let's say, open Flipkart and open a iPhone product page, you'll see that it's 80,000 rupees, but with HDFC discount, this coupon, you can get it at 75,000. So the product assumption when we built it was, okay, users keep checking what's the best price and all of that. Why don't we show it upfront? So this will help the user to realize, okay, it's not 80,000, it's maybe 75,000. Similarly, a 1,000 rupee Levi's t-shirt, it's actually 700 rupees. So more people will add the product to their cart, and maybe once they go to the checkout option, they might realize, okay, I don't have the right card, so I don't get the discounts. So we assumed, okay, we would get a lot of people adding to checkout, but the checkout to payment would be dropping. It actually happened the opposite. Because people now don't have to add and check what's the best price. They can just directly see from this widget. They instead check all the products that they want and just add only one item. Earlier, they have to add every item, go to payment page and check, okay, how much I'm getting it at. And now the other one, the end of the funnel, right, where checkout to payment, there we expected more people will go, and less people will convert. There it actually converted better because people already knew.
Yeah, they're not even going there to check, right? Yeah.
So that conversion one. And then emotions was more about, so Flipkart, if you see, the Big Billion Day happens for 5-6 days, right?
Yeah.
And then banks, they sign up and say, okay, I will give you 3,000 rupee offer on HDFC. But they don't allow more than once. They give it like one card once. But when we actually launched for the first time, we were showing it every time. So people saw 3,000 discount on mobile phone. They ordered it. They saw again there's a 3,000 discount. They said, okay, I will order for you, for the family or somebody. They went there and then they found that it's not there. So they got super upset. We got a lot of tickets which got raised that you are promising this and cheating. So yeah, that's an example where assumptions and what user behavior goes opposite, and they also exhibit these emotions. They take it very personally, right? As he said that you make lending very seamless. It doesn't feel like lending anymore. Similarly, the 3,000 upfront discount you showed, customers thought that it's already a discount. I got it, right? So once it's not there, they get upset.
Yeah. So couple of weeks back, I'm going to quote, Tata Click or somebody sent me saying that you have 15,000 worth vouchers. I said, wow, 15,000 worth. I went in. So it is for a watch for 3 lakhs. If I buy, I have a voucher for 15,000 rupees. And that I come to know at the end page. Okay. Moving ahead, I think we are more than half the time. Yeah. Okay. More than half the time. So the next theme is testing. Of course, we have to get into this. So I'm going to combine the questions. I'm going to start with you, Logarajan. Okay. And requesting to keep it as short as possible so that we can cover all the themes. As per you, it's purely your experience, exposure, your gyan that you're going to tell us, saying that what should QA, the testing team, start measuring and stop measuring That's the first question. And to add to that, is testing becoming an experience intelligence? I know, but I want to get what you feel about it.
See, in consumer experience, right? One thing is, if you see a lot of you would use Flipkart, you might see some of your family or friends use predominantly Amazon. If you see, both of them will give almost very similar price, but some people are like, I use Amazon. Same goes with Flipkart. Same thing, if you notice, it also exists in Swiggy versus Zomato. There are some cases, some people have some cards, so Swiggy HDFC card, for example, and when you probe them, they say, no, I find comfortable with Zomato. The Zomato user experience is better. Where you will say, no, Swiggy has a better user experience. I worked on Flipkart, so I'm loyal to Flipkart. But between my friends, I have
an Amazon guy.
Yeah, you're an Amazon guy, right? And you will feel that Amazon has better user experience. I can debate you all night why Flipkart has better user experience, but keeping it first, right?
Let's do that another day.
The point is, it's not about the quality or best user experience, right? It's how confident the user. And if you keep probing, they'll say that I'm certain that this is how it works. I know this. If I open this, I can do this and I can place an order. How confident the user feels while using your product, right? So that's what when the testers do, right? They see that how much effort if they put themselves on the user shoe and see that, am I being confident to use this feature? Am I confident that if my mom or my friend, if they use a feature, they understand it very easily? How different from the current user experience? How is it contradicting with, let's say, if I say that there's a option which automatically applies a coupon, and we newly launch a feature which says you have to manually do that. So both of them contradict. So it's not giving the confidence to the user. Why am I having different user behaviors, right? So the same certainty and confidence. So how much that can be derived? That's again, right. So it can't be covered with unit test cases and all, right? It has to come from putting themselves as an experience. Correct.
Okay, great. Move on to you, Love. Again, according to you, now bringing the testing in the 2026 in your field, what should QA stop measuring? What should QA should start measuring from a product perspective? And is testing becoming more of experience intelligence? We've heard him.
So I think I've worked with a lot of fantastic QA guys, and one of the things that I always keep discussing internally is that sometimes we give the requirement to an engineer, we'll have a grooming session with the engineer, a very intense grooming session, and they will deliver something. But then when it goes to testing, we realize that several mistakes were made, and the QA really understands that, right? So I've worked with really fantastic QA folks, but a lot of the QA folks, especially the folks so we have a lot of folks who are doing a lot of automation testing, right? But manual testing still exists, right? And for good measure is that. And a lot of the people, because they want to do their work very, very quickly, they develop a muscle memory behind even doing usual work, right? And this kind of again became one of the problem statements for us, that because of muscle memory was there, like whenever we used to have let's say we had a repayment screen somewhere on the app and people used to test it, the testing was always 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, they will test it and it will go through, etc., right? And that test case almost always passed, right? Muscle memory, people doing very, very quickly, not even realizing half the time what they're doing. So there was one loan product that we were launching, which was a higher ticket loan product where you could draw down 10 lakhs and repay 10 lakhs, etc., right? And therefore, like, the ideal situation for the QA would have been to test with that high a quantity even in the lower environments, just to see how that changes. But they were still testing that particular scenario with like 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, right? Everything went well, perfect testing, right? And then, we launched, and then the first day itself, or rather, this was a product in which we were sort of giving a kind of like an overdraft facility to the customer, that they would draw down a very big amount and return things very, very quickly, right? So 1 or 2 days later, we, got a call from one of the, sales folks, business folks, saying that the customer is not able to make the repayment. And why? Because, he has to make a repayment of 10 lakh rupees or something, a very high amount, but it was not allowing it to. And we realized after, maybe half an hour of worth of debugging that we had a hard limit set somewhere that, okay, repayments over 10 lakh, very ancient code, legacy code, 10 lakh rupees repayments, just not supported. And we were like, why is it not supported? Just not supported. You remove that restriction, 20 minutes, it'll get deployed and you will be supporting it. And this could have been easily caught, right? But the muscle memory was that, okay, when I encounter this test case, I'll just, sort of test with 1,000 rupees and all, right? Like, so, I mean, like understanding the context of what you are testing, what is the, product. I mean, whether it is a e-commerce product for checkout and checkout, are you checking out an iPhone or are you checking out a bar of soap, right? Those kind of things can probably really, really matter in such experiences. Yeah. So.
Okay, Krishna, you want me to?
No, I think, no, nothing more to add, but plus one to I think what Lab said. So yeah, I've also seen in my experience a lot of good QA folks or engineers who kind of represent the testing function. I think they kind of do pretty well both on the functional side, non-functional side, automation, manual. I think all of that is pretty useful. But I think that's a lot of times that kind of limits limits them from thinking what the end user outcome is, right? Like, why are we building this in the first place, right? Like, the idea is not that this should just work, right? Like, it should work to the extent that customers, whoever we are building it for, they should kind of like find, delight or usefulness in that, right? It should not just work for the sake of like, this is the workflow and hence this workflow works, right? So I think that is probably like the biggest difference, I would say. I probably wouldn't say stop anything. I think that's, depth is kind of part and parcel of the game. But if they're also able to kind of increase the breadth and start thinking about, customer problems, why are we building this? What outcome is it going to kind of achieve, right? So I think that is what will really, that's the future. And that's also the experiential part that you're talking about, right? So I think that's for example, just getting into the shoes of customers, right? Like saying that, okay, how is like a new user is going to behave versus let's say like a repeat user, right? A very high frequency user versus like a very infrequent user, right? Or let's say this market versus like this geography versus that geography, right? Like, so just understanding all of those nuances, that context, why are we building it, what will it achieve? I think if that larger vision is there, I think that will really change the game. I mean, that's also kind of what's happening now with AI, right? Yeah. Like, especially because now the whole process of actually doing the work has become so simple that you see roles changing, right? Now, like PM doing somebody else's job, somebody else is doing PM's job, right? Designer doing, engineer's job, engineer doing QS job. It's all mixed up, right? So I think more and more, I think people are moving towards this like larger, vision and looking at like what really is the problem.
So that's my next theme. The next theme, and if I'm not wrong, that will be the last theme. So there's already getting pushback saying that the last theme would be AI. Okay, I'm gonna just get on to the same thing, saying that okay. So this, I don't think anybody has an answer, but I would definitely love the perspectives and exposures of what you feel is that. Is AI making quality easier or harder? And what does testing mean in AI-driven product? AI is, are you, from the product perspective, are you using AI to create the product, or whether it is your PRDs, understand the market or do your research, or are you thinking of AI to be embedded as a part of the product, or how the thought, because the product team leads it. Now, you will do a market study. You will have your own frameworks to whether it is a RISE framework. There are so many of them saying that to create a roadmap, saying that this is how the product's gonna be because this is what the market needs. Will give me the niche, or this will boost my revenue. I will have a better play, or blah blah and stuff and all. Now, the AI is gonna be there, and AI is gonna survive. The AI is going to be just like the infrastructure. It's going to be part of that stuff and all. So let's make it very simple to understand. Is AI making quality easier or harder? And what does testing mean in an AI-driven product?
I think both, right? Like there are pros and cons to everything. So I think some parts of it is definitely becoming easier thanks to AI, right? Like especially a lot of the grunt work. That is definitely becoming easiar.
I have a different view, right? I would love to write the PRD by myself because the thought process is running in my brain on why am I typing this is much more different if I just put 4 bullet points and give it to Claude and it gives me a complete PRD.
No, so but that's why you also need like eval systems or like checks and balances to ensure that. So which is what I said. Like so, some parts it's made it easier. But some parts it's probably even like harder or more difficult right now. Like for example, like to your question on the AI quality side, right? So maybe earlier it was okay to kind of test largely for functional correctness, right? Like, is this functionally delivering like what we're expected to do? Obviously, the non-functional part is also important, but like the emphasis was more on like, whatever is expected to be done, is it doing that, correctly or not? Now, I think because of the whole reasoning models, it can kind of go haywire and it can be technically right or factually right, but the meaning or the interpretation or the usefulness or relevance could go down significantly, right? Like we've all seen like AI actually talking very fluent, fancy English, but then like there is no content in that, right? It doesn't really, like it doesn't resonate at all. So hence the job is not just now about like factual accuracy or technical like functional correctness, but it's also about judgment. Right. So a lot more understanding of like, what we just spoke about, like what is the user, what are they trying to accomplish, in what context, how will it help? Right. So having that judgment and knowing that like, things could go haywire. Right. So that I think that's a new skill. Right. So that skill now needs to also be incorporated, which is kind of, I mean, if you think about evals, it's nothing but like, it's just that in a new, old wine in a new bottle types, right? So
some new verbal jugglery, hallucination, drift.
Correct. A lot of this verbal jugglery, but at the end of the day, it's that, right? Like evals are nothing but like how rigorously are you able to ensure that your product meets the quality bars that you're ready to ship it out to customers.
Fantastic. Love.
I think the quality bar is probably going to be higher, right? Because humans get used to things very, very quickly, right?
Yeah.
So 1 year ago, you couldn't really expect, 2 years ago, you couldn't really expect like something like ChatGPT to come in, right? 2024. And then it started writing code. Now it can create beautiful prototypes. And the other day, somebody in my team was, demoing a prototype to me. And maybe 1 year ago, had she done that, I would have been like so proud of her just for delivering that. But now it's like, okay, now what? So what, right? Like, what is the outcome that, like, so I think people are going to move a little bit more towards what is the outcome. So what if, you do this, right?
Outcome.
So what he was saying, right? Like 70% of the things probably don't even get shipped. And she had spent that much time in sort of delivering that prototype. Earlier, she would have probably spent a lot of time thinking about it, delivering that prototype, and then, for ultimately all of us to say.
And so most probably back then realizing that this is not worthy of building.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But now because it's so easy to build.
Yeah, so you'll build the prototype.
Let me just give it 1 day and see what happens, right? So you lower the bar on that. Like, should we really build it? Because it's so easy to build, right?
That also happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like it's basically like I think the bar for quality is probably going to get higher, right? Because
yes.
now everyone is able to build beautiful user interfaces, right? And I kind of agree with the kind of conversation we were having. I don't think user interfaces are going away anytime
it's not going to go away.
right? It's going to be there. It's like the default for most of us. But now the bar is very high, so you have to figure out how you are differentiating and what is the outcome that you are creating in addition to, creating it fast, maybe.
Great.
Yeah, I actually thought about some anecdotal. Okay, so
Please,
so
shoot.
let's say you have a Maruti, right? And suddenly one day somebody comes and fixes a Mercedes engine in it. Would you go way faster? You may not. Why? Because in a Mercedes you have a very strong brake and airbags. So in today's world, due to AI, right, the faster I can ship PRDs because the thesis that it can write documents, the faster the engineers can code. Like almost every code is written by AI now. The velocity is so high, you need to have that confidence that, okay, it's not that AI hallucinated something that I actually thought it's a good feature and developer also built it and shipped it. You need that testing to take that higher responsible role, right? Earlier, it's more like whether this issue happened or not, whether this button worked or not. Now, with QA, we are actually expecting, okay, is it making users use an app as is expected, right? So is there acceptance there from users or not? That's the new acceptance or the success versus it worked or not functionality wise.
Usability, experience, feasibility, emotions, every new things have gone into this. We've also been working on some things on how to test AI. We have a framework and stuff, and all of these things keep popping. Good to know. Okay, so I believe, though I have a lot of questions, in the interest of time, that will be the questions from my side, but I'll open it to the people if they have any questions to the panelists.